feeling is what they want. Oh yeah! That feeling is what they get.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh my god.
All right,
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of the Reframe Podcast. I am Benji.
I'm Max, aka Merch XVX.
Yes. We're here to talk about video games. I'm super stoked. It's been a while since I made a video. The last one was a conversation with me and Max, which is one of my favorite things to do. And we like talking about video games, and specifically we like talking about competitive video games as a mirror for life and a platform to get close. Our goal with these conversations is to capture a little bit of the magic of us just sitting on the couch, Game Grumps style, and talking about life through the lens of whatever we're playing, or exploring our minds and our approach to relationships and to our values, both in the choices of the games that we play and our approaches to those games in general. But that's the tone I want to capture here. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. I love games. I'm pretty new to games. But I love thinking about this stuff with Ben, as he is someone, who's been playing games and playing Nintendo games for a long time. And so I love Ben's perspective, and I love learning about whatever, like the video game hobby, the competitive gaming mindset as a whole. I love introducing myself to all these new things, alongside the lens that Ben has as more experienced gamer and competitive gamer. So that's where I'm at.
So to really quickly recap, if you didn't see the last video we made together, which was quite a while ago now, sitting in a backyard amongst the bamboo, we sort of grew up in a similar music scene and became close on the road together over music and over competitive games. I played Smash competitively, you play pinball competitively, and we found solace in each other and in this passion in a turbulent time on the road, on a bus, going across the country, and showed each other's worlds and took each other to tournaments. And now I know a very little bit about pinball, and I have a deeper understanding of the game than I ever did.
What our conversations always come back to is are like the similarities and the differences between Smash and pinball as competitive games, and also as like fun individual pursuits, because they are pretty similar, and more similar than just both being competitive games. My pinball game has changed so much over the course of our friendship, for sure.
Since Tweak became your hero. But what started this kind of project was a conversation about Gameplans, and it got me pretty stoked. It came up for me because I play Link, and Link is a bit bad, and I was tired of losing. I've played Link in every Smash game since Melee, since I was however many single-digit years old. I was born in 97. Why?
Yeah.
He looks fucking sick. He's a young man. He's got a touch of androgyny. And I played Red Link. I liked Red Link. And I think I like that he is an all-arounder. He has a sword, but he has items. There's a cerebral element. I don't know that I thought about all this, but his design speaks to me and many others just in every single way.
And you're a huge Zelda fan.
But that didn't happen until way later. My first Zelda game that I played was Skyward Sword in 2011. Okay. I've since gone back and played nearly every game in the series, but I've played Link forever, and I've been very dedicated to him in this game. Found some success. I've competed in the Philly Smash Ultimate scene, the Maryland Smash Ultimate scene, and now in the New York Smash Ultimate scene, and sort of consistently been right outside top 8 at most of my locals for a while. And I was pretty frustrated, and a bit of feedback I was consistently getting from people, even after really doing everything I could to be as mindful about the game as possible, while also not going too overboard. Like there were periods where I would go overboard, and like I went, there was a time like last year where I went to a tournament every day for 20 days, and I didn't really break that. I was discouraged. I didn't really break that barrier, and I wanted to try a better character, a character with which I could push my advantage state harder, basically my on-hit game. I felt like my consistent feedback from people was that I was winning neutral a lot, or that I was decently hard to hit, but I wasn't making the most out of my advantage. And Link can definitely do that, but I'm like, my opponents are living to really high percentages. What am I doing with all this strength and range if that's happening? Like, maybe I'd be better suited to another character. I have all this experience with the game. Let me try Young Link. For a couple reasons. One, it's still Link. Two, I have to love the character. Zelda is my favorite franchise. And
You have to love the character.
especially at this point in Smash Ultimate, in any game, but particularly in Smash Ultimate, a game with so many variables, and this is not a novel thing to say, but with so many variables and so many winning strategies, you got to freak your shit. It's better, in my experience, and I'm writing a video about this right now, to enhance your strengths rather than to only focus on bolstering your weaknesses. So Young Link, crazy on-hit game, and in particular, I had an influence, a player from Maryland named Zexy with 3 Ys, if you want to look him up, who's one of, if not the best Young Links in MDVA. And it was a great influence on me, and I loved his explosive play style, and I loved his on-hit game. A lot of people do. So I picked up Young Link last summer. And yeah.
And so long.
It's been so long. Coming back to this thing about game plan. A couple months ago, I had a coaching session with a Smash coach. Some of you might know Ramses, who's been a massive influence for me as a person over the past couple years, and I've had different coaching sessions with when I was full-time playing Link, if you can say full-time. And with Young Link, it's really easy to fish for stuff because he has so many crazy confirms, and his damage output is so insane on hit. And Zexy, particularly as an influence, he's a pretty different guy than me, and he's very aggressive, and I tend to have a more passive style, but I was taking influence from that, like a style that on the surface looked like you were spamming projectile starters, combo starters.
Yeah,
And so
that's what you were saying was like his really like baseline, like majority of the time. So like that was
dash
the
back,
big
throw,
thing.
boomerang, you know?
Yeah.
And there's way more to it than that. I've actually seen a lot of growth in his play recently even. But
That makes sense. But yeah. Okay.
on the surface, especially when you're starting to learn something, you spam that win con, you know?
Right.
So Ramses really encouraged me. He's like, Young Link, he's kind of a 6 out of 10 at everything, which means he's incredibly flexible, but you have to play the matchup in order to play to their weaknesses. Because he can do it, but if you just, he's not strong enough in any one category to just be like, this is my win condition, die.
Which is why it's so shocking to think that Zexy actually plays like a
That way.
one-size-fits-all strategy.
Well, he
against every
is
character.
just that good on hit.
Yeah.
But also, like I said, I see a lot more balance in his gameplay recently.
That makes sense.
And also, maybe I see him dying sometimes for this stuff against some good players. So anyway, I've had a matchup chart for Link in the past, notes for every single matchup in the game, which is a lot. It's like 90 characters. But I went back to make a new one for Young Link, which is really different. Very different character below the surface. Tiny little sword, super fast. I was making pretty detailed notes for every single character, and it was definitely helpful. You get those newbie gains whenever you swallow a new dose of mindfulness, where okay, all of a sudden there's structure to your gameplay.
Yeah. You start improving so much, so fast.
And then maybe you get a little scared. You're like, oh, I don't want to lose these games. But basically, I just started to wane. It started to not work. And there was a couple pieces to that. One is just that I'm busy. You know, I'm like living in New York. I have a full-time job and some part-time jobs. I'm looking for new jobs, trying to make it happen out here. So I don't have 20 days in a row to go to tournaments anymore. Maybe again someday, but it's just that's not what's happening right now. Basically, I had a reckoning with myself. And I'm like, I've put a lot of time into this game. I spent a lot of time feeling like there's a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm not going to win. I've spent a lot of time feeling like I need to live up to Zexi's standard of the character or to other people's standard of the character. Like there's all this stuff that I need to do. There's a right way to play it. However, I am not Zexy, and that was a feedback I would get from people. I'm not that aggressive a player, like from an emotional standpoint. I can be, but basically, people know their stuff too well, and it's too deep at this point. You're not going to win. Just like with your bread and butters, there's a creative element that I do think is necessary, or an awareness element at the very least. I needed to simplify my matchup chart. And I was watching Zexy, and I'm like, he does change what he's doing, but basically he has this plan A, and the plan B, if we're going to vastly overgeneralize, is to disengage until he can reestablish plan A. And so I'm like, yo, screw this. I'm going to mash. And I want to have fun playing the game. I don't want to squeeze all this decision making into and out of myself every time I sit down to play this video game that I love very much and that I think that I'm good at. So I changed my matchup chart. I like took so much out of it. I used to have the range from which you should play it. The 2 out of 10, the weakness of the character you're fighting, the 8 out of 10, the strength of the character you're fighting, and notes about stage choices in the matchup. And I'm like, okay, the baseline for Young Link is that he is a mid-range monster. There's a lot of mid-range monsters in this game, but he is great at establishing control of the mid-range with projectiles and with movement. Let's take some pressure off my brain and let that be the baseline. So now my matchup chart looks like this: 2 bullet points per matchup. The first one is a variation. What's the 1 or 2 things that I want to keep in mind for this matchup? And the second one is notes about stage choice. So all that to say, what started this conversation is a nugget of a thought that a game plan, I don't know, you can't strangle the improv out of you. There's got to be a ton of self-trust involved.
I think this is what we always come back to, is feeling like we've been like strangling the fun out of our games, trying to optimize our play. The way you simplified your game plan, you know, is to like strip Young Link down to his like kind of like foundational elements, both in general and you know, and specific to each character matchup. And you were saying to me that like that is how much specific direction you wanted to give yourself. You wanted to trust yourself as someone who's put like 5,000 plus hours into Ultimate as a game. You know, you want to trust yourself to play Ultimate and to like express yourself honestly and efficiently. Having a helpful game plan that doesn't overload us, you know, that leaves us space to wrangle our adrenaline and like wrangle our nerves and really like, you know, express ourselves truthfully through the game.
Well, part of that realization is that you don't need to play perfect to win.
Yeah, because you're just like not like, you know, we love Smash professionals who do play perfect, you know, and it's easy for me at least, not in Smash because I don't play Smash, but but pinball too. Like, it's easy to watch, these professional players and forget that like, a lot of the things they're doing, like I literally can't. I can't do. It's unrealistic and counterproductive to even try to
Talking about
play.
in terms of like the game plans they employ that rely on like consecutive crazy execution.
Right. Pinball as a single player game, essentially, there's no opponent forcing my hand at every moment. So I have freedom to try for the highest risk, highest reward, most specific strategy on like one of the most modern games, that maybe I'm playing in a competition. But it's like, have I put in, like 100 hours on this specific game? Like, no. Do I have all these skills to actually put a game like that together, and like successfully execute a game plan like that? No. So
You probably do worse if you try.
exactly. Yeah, because of how the games are designed, and also because of the effect of like, putting yourself into this tiny box of what you're supposed to do, and not being amenable to like any other gameplay options or any other alternative routes to winning. We can't play like that, so we end up not even playing to the best of our abilities.
And I don't know about you, but I find also the encouraging thing is if you try to embody their spirit a little bit. If I sit down and play and I'm like, oh, like,
well, yeah,
I'm Super Semi, who's the number one young Link debatably in the world right now, or I'm Zexy, or I'm whatever. If I look back at that replay, I'm playing like me. I'm not playing like them, but I probably am playing pretty good because I feel strong and I feel confident.
I mean, that's straight out of the inner game of tennis, which we've talked about.
It's so true.
Like the goated sports psychology book. Where like one of the tenets of mastering the inner game of tennis is to picture Super Semi, like, or to picture like my favorite pinball player, or to picture, I guess, Tweak, and try to embody them just like emotionally. It doesn't have to be like literally accurate. It's about like confidence in yourself. It's not about like literal gameplay emulation. It's just like it's about it's about believing in yourself. It sounds so simple, but it's like so hard to do.
Well, yeah, and if you can't find it in yourself, find it in somebody else. And the encouraging thing is that whatever conception you have of that person exists within you. I said this to Daniel Fang one time, from the drummer from Turnstile. He told me that he was doing he was struggling with a fill live, and I'm like, you got to picture your favorite fucking drummer doing that fill. And he came back the next day, he's like, yo, that was kind of sick. I kind of nailed it. I forget who he said, but just gives you confidence. You also mentioned at the top that this can relate to the world of single player games too, and we're both playing single player games right now, as we always are. So right now I'm playing The Last of Us Remastered for the first time, and I grew up like pretty much only a Nintendo gamer. I bought my PS5 for like way too much off Facebook Marketplace when I still couldn't find one because I had to play Elden Ring.
Have you played FromSoft games before Elden Ring?
I lived with someone who had a PS5 for a while, and I played the Demon Souls remake, and shit was so gas.
That's the only thing you had played, though?
That's the only thing I had played. Oh, I know. I played a couple hours of Bloodborne. So Last of Us. I'd watch people play the game, I watch the show, whatever. And like definitely a 10, but sort of antithetical to all the games I would normally play that, I would describe as like gameplay first, and there's more to unpack there. Super tight experience, but definitely chiefly cinematic, and it's cool because there are some core systems that are super super tightly designed in terms of the combat and the looting and the crafting that progress over the course of the game, but each, like, it's a lot of set pieces, you know what I mean, like there's a lot of canned interactions and experiences. This was,
but it's like that's the opposite of, I don't know, every, like, I guess every Nintendo game, you know?
Right. I mean, take
Like,
Breath of the Wild for example, where it's the structure is at the top. At the top, it gives you, here are your systems. You
that's
are
what the game is all about.
you
That's it.
will use the interactions of these systems for the rest of the game, and what might change is the world or your strength, but like the things you can do don't really change.
No, I mean,
There's no quick time events in Zelda, you know.
This is we're getting off top. I'm getting off topic, but we were talking about the Game Maker's Toolkit, you know, last night, which is like, yeah, like probably the best like video game design critique like YouTube channel, I guess. You know, and he has a video about Nintendo game design and how those games like put play first, you know, and how every game is just designed around like a single play mechanic or a group of mechanics and systems, you know.
I mean, I don't actually know, but I do get the sense that with The Last of Us, they first decided that the story that they wanted to tell. So I got the sense of the game that it's like, it's all about immersion. And it's like this survival horror thing.
And we're not saying that the gameplay or the combat is bad necessarily.
Of course not. No.
Because you know, obviously the gameplay and the combat in these games is like made in a lab. You know, it's like,
it's amazing,
to be perfect. But
the philosophy is just different. All that to say, I went into it trying to get this immersion out of it that I thought was its strength, and also I'm a try hard, so I'm like, I'm gonna play it well. And I kind of wanted, but I wanted as much of the depth of the experience as possible. So I picked the normal difficulty setting.
So you chose normal difficulty, hoping that this would be right for you, and also it would convey like the proper experience that the designers had in mind, even though you don't know them and they don't know you. They
don't hide things the way that I'm used to.
Yeah, like what a fascinating snafu.
But so there's this mechanic in the game that anybody who's played it will be familiar with, called sensing. So there's a lot of, there's stealth involved, and you can hide behind walls, and I think you click in the right stick, and you can see silhouettes of enemies. I'm like, I don't want to use this. Like, I don't need to use this. This seems like a crutch, like something that would break the immersion. I was a little bit intrigued by like the more hardcore modes that do away with that in general, where you also do more damage and take more damage. But I was kind of trying to have my cake and eat it too. So at first, when I played the game, I was like, I don't need that. Like, let me use it felt like breaking the level design a little bit. I'm like, the level should be designed so that I don't need that. So flash forward a little bit. I'm having a conversation with my computer science teacher from high school, who I just got back in contact with, who is a developer at Naughty Dog. His first project with them was Last of Us Remastered. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like, I'm playing this right now. Super, super cool guy. And I asked him, I'm like, I'm playing the game right now without sensing. And I've never made a video game, but I almost expected him as like a hardcore guy, and also as an artist and a developer and a programmer, not to like necessarily respect that, but to like be like, oh, like I get what you're trying to get out of the game, or to say, yes, this is what you're knocking on something about what we intended, or no, like that doesn't make any sense. And he was kind of like, you could do that, but like you're not really getting anything out of it. And at the same time, my roommate is yelling at me because I'm like shooting people and like I'm getting bored with stealth. My plan going into this game was trying to play how I want. I want to go in and be aggressive. I want to go in and shoot people, not even because I really like guns in video games that much, but because combat to me is more fun than stealth. I was just talking about how I'm not aggressive, but I have a hard time slowing down. I have this sense of entitlement as an experienced gamer that I want to like bust through the levels, that you can't stop me, that I can win by mashing my buttons, essentially. It is just not that kind of game. And there is a huge extent still in Smash, antithetically to what we said before, still in Smash, but definitely in a game like this, you have to like. There's a way that it wants you to play, and that's tough for me as a Nintendo
You have
gamer.
to adapt. You do have to adapt.
Yeah.
Regardless,
And,
like
I
forget
kept
forget
throwing
about
my head
trying to
against
get.
that wall, and I kept dying. And my roommate's like, "Yo, you're playing this kind of slow," and I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good at games."
Right, you're right, but it's like not uh forget about trying to achieve like the intended experience of The Last of Us as like a piece of art. You know, just to make it through the game, you have to adapt your play style like a little bit, right? Um,
And mostly
like
that came to be like not
yeah,
shunning options, because once I started using sensing, I just started having more fun, and I was getting through the game, and I was experiencing the story more seamlessly, which is maybe like to my original goal.
right.
I don't know
And
what I mean.
that's how
What's
you
the lesson
know.
here?
Well, I mean, especially, you know, considering The Last of Us as like a perfect media product, like it's making you feel good. Like that's how you know that you're doing it right. Um, and I know you said before how important like consistent forward momentum in a game is to you. You know, like when you were playing like Metroid Prime when it came, you know, when the remaster came out last year. Um, you
Overrated
know,
game.
overrated.
Mm-hmm.
We should
Keep
talk
going.
about
Keep
that
going.
at some
Keep going.
point. But yeah, you're saying it's about forward momentum, you know, and actually trying to playing the game more stubborn without embracing like the sensing mechanic, you know, was hindering your enjoyment of the game. The moral is about being open to playing a little differently, following the guide of a well designed game.
So maybe Smash is special in that it's so well designed that you can play it however you want.
I mean, Smash is like drugs, you know, like Jesus. You know, each character has, you know, at least like two or three, like, uh, like viable, like, right?
Maybe the bigger takeaway, getting away from the specifics of like, oh, mash or don't mash, the bigger takeaway is you have to pay attention to what the game systems are telling you. If the game
Yeah,
systems are telling
right.
you, improvise is maybe the wrong word because you're improvising in both situations. If the game's telling you to improvise or to hold center, and other than that, kind of do whatever, great. If the game is telling you to be stealthy and to be slow because the AI is dumb, but you're gonna lose if you go in guns blazing, you're gonna have an easier time if you don't resist that. Actually, one of my issues with the more recent Zelda games is that there's not enough there to de-incentivize a mashy strategy. Like, I wish
was
it
thinking
actually
about that today, man.
made me
Yeah.
think a little bit more about my game plan.
So I was thinking about my sole playthrough of Breath of the Wild. I was thinking about it today, but specifically the runes, not in combat. Never used them in combat. In a sense, that's like kind of the risk of of that of the Nintendo game design is,
Like, not
you know,
pushing you enough.
not pushing me enough to like, if the intended experience of Breath of the Wild was for me to use the runes, you know, but Nintendo, in trying to make a game that everyone can play and enjoy on some level, you know, they made it totally possible and pretty easy to go through the game without leaning into the runes that much. You know what I mean? Then I still finish the game, you know, and I still do all the major stuff in the game, but but I'm left like a little confused and like unsatisfied because and unfulfilled, you know, and I don't know why. And today I was realizing it's because I really didn't lean in to core systems of the game, you know, like
You gotta play Dark Souls.
talking about also Game Maker's Toolkit and also my other favorite YouTube video game design and critique channel Rasputin. You know, both, especially Raz, but like I think Game Maker's Toolkit too. Like every single design, every single video that they make always goes back to Dark Souls. You know, as a game that's all about adapting, and it's and it's all about getting good. There's no difficulty settings because the games are, like From makes them with a specific experience in mind. Obviously there are a million things to be said about that. If I want to talk about what I'm playing,
talk to me.
I haven't played any FromSoft games, for whatever reason. But instead, I'm not trying to say that Celeste is like a Souls-like game.
Dude, it low-key is. Is. I was going to say.
I mean, it low-key is, but only, I think, in the sense that, like, Dark Souls seems like, all the FromSoft games seem just like the absolute Bible of game design, so, like, every game that's well-designed is going to be like them in some way. Yeah, obviously, the soundtrack and the art and everything is like, beautiful. All that stuff goes without saying. It's designed so perfectly. Every level and every screen, is like is so thoroughly, it feels like Portal. It's like so clearly play tested to the moon and back. It feels like perfect. It's so unbelievably dialed, like I couldn't possibly describe it with words. And it's so hard. Like, it's all about like trial and error, and perseverance.
So what does that mean for your game plan, both going into the approach to the game as a whole and to each screen?
You only have to beat each screen once,
True that.
Right? So whether I like it or not, the way I play the game is just is trying and trying again, to varying degrees of like mindlessness, and just like kind of throwing shit at the wall until you beat the screen once and you get to move on. Most screens, you have to learn what's coming in the screen by getting to that point in the screen. You'll always beat the screen. Eventually, you always will. It's kind of impossible not to, even if it takes like thousands of deaths. Like, you will. So okay, the like material game plan of Celeste is just like, don't give up and enjoy the music and like have a good time. The mental kind of game plan of Celeste is that game puts me in like a very serious like Zen state. The rhythm of dying and respawning it's like very rhythmic, and that like taps into that like pretty, God, I don't know, like reptilian or like dog part of your brain that's like all about like rhythm and repetition. Is not just to like be okay with dying and failing constantly, and like kind of like beating your head against the wall, but also to like let yourself get enveloped in that kind of like Zen mode.
Do you need a game plan in a game like Celeste?
No, you don't. I don't think that you do. I think
you only need a game plan if there's a timed element. If someone's trying to beat you faster than you're beating yourself, or if you're impatient like me. The rehearsal is so central. The rehearsal and then the execution is so central to the design of something like Celeste. And I wanted to like touch really briefly on that difference between what's acceptable in training versus performance. Because of course, there are times when the stakes are low, when you're playing friendlies in Smash or whatever, when you're playing pinball by yourself. You want to try to push yourself, to employ new strategies, to improve your execution. And then, the plan in that case is it's like a different meta level of the same thing. You're providing a large framework where you're like improvising by letting yourself do something that might fail in order to improve more broadly. But the genius of the design of something like Celeste, like, what am I trying to say here, is that it's almost both in one, where you're encouraged to try new strategies as much as you want, but in the end, to get through the level, you're going to have to put them together. Even in like creating the structure for this first episode, I'm trying to capture the bit of magic in us just hanging out or our conversations, while also making sure that it's listenable. You need to have a framework in order to be able to improvise, in order to be able to have success. And as I see it in my life right now, broadly, and like maybe you relate to this, like a hypothesis I'm hoping to like look back on in the future is that the purpose of a game plan is to provide a framework and a vocabulary, and that's like move set, that's
Totally.
that's positioning, that's whatever, a vocabulary for improvisation. And,
Right.
and we are like different about that as people. Like when we were talking about just what's going on in our lives and like preparing for recording this, like we were just talking about how different like we set up our days. Like I'm pretty I don't know how I ended up this way, because I wouldn't have never thought myself this kind of dude, but like I've become pretty like regimented. And I often schedule my days out. You know, there's levels to it, but I schedule my days out pretty specifically, and I really admire that you're like, oh yeah, I kind of don't. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
I don't do
about
that.
like what I'm gonna eat and like when I'm gonna do this and that. And you're like, go to work when you need to, and kind of do what I want.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. You know, and there are lots of things that go into that. But yeah, you know, I have more or less a game plan for life too, which is like a framework of things that I know to be true. You know, just like the plan A, B, and C for young Link. You know, or maybe like 3 different tiered strategies for a pinball game that each have a different level of risk versus reward. You know, there are things about the game at hand that I know to be true, that set the parameters for how I'm going to open my game. You know, for how I'm going to operate. You know, at the end of the day, with each of these games, with enough practice and rehearsal, you know, that game plan is, like you said, like a framework within which we can like confidently improvise and adapt, and like
and tolerate discomfort.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, because
it's not always going to go to plan, you know, and maybe all 3, like maybe like you're playing, you know, like you're playing whatever, you know, a certain matchup, and all 3 of your game plans have been exhausted. You know, those were the frameworks from which you were operating, but now you have to go off script, and you have to improvise, and you have to adapt, and you have to like trust yourself to move from the place of discomfort, which is like feeling totally lost in a match and like your opponent totally has your number. You know, you got to trust yourself and your expertise with the game to like work on the fly and like tap into your, I don't know, like muscle memory, like this, like just like the stuff you know about young Link, the stuff you know deep down to be true, that like what he can do, what you can make him do, and how you can like turn the situation around.
Structure is super important, and also can become a cage of your own design.
Yeah,
I think
which is why I
figuring
love
out
your thing.
how much structure you enjoy as a person, like this is something I'm just coming up on like just this minute, like that's maybe, you know, that's one of the most important things and one of the most like defining characteristics for somebody's character, and that's exemplified in the way that they play games too, and in the games that they like. Last of Us maybe doesn't have enough improv for me so far. It feels like a little rehearsed. Not to say that's necessarily what it is, but that's my experience of it so far. Something like Souls, and this is my last point. Something like Souls I really like because it's baked into the gameplay that there will be different play styles. There's different builds. But for each build, you need to have a plan. Evenly distributing your stats and not specializing is not going to work. So you can play whichever way you want, but you got to play that way.
Right. I think the idea of single player games having a game plan, depends on kind of like maybe each game. It's like a case by case thing. Not even maybe like a genre thing. Like it's just like it might just be like a case by case thing, and it depends on what your goals with playing the game is too. Like I wasn't speed running Metal Gear Solid. Like I was in it for a lot of the cinematic stuff that I'm gonna get no matter how badly I play the game. But I like where you're at right now, having a framework to operate from and to like build your proficiency off of with Young Link. Not that you don't already have it, but yeah.
It's just too sad to not invest in your talents. And if you really like some kind of outlet, there's probably something about it that, talent's a whole nother discussion, but like something about it that speaks to you. And so there's some thing that you can invest in. And in a multiplayer game where it's people, there's a system in place, but it's people. And the more you can learn to navigate the world with confidence in your style, the better that the better it translates and the stronger your feet are as you pivot.
That was the first thing you said to me about Smash, or really fighting games in general. Is that it's like it's just a conversation. Maybe like a combative conversation, but it's like a conversation.
Doesn't have to be violent.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's hop off this. I love you.
What do we do?
More soon.
Yeah.
Peace out.